I had to look up what a bandwagoner is
Ah,
because I've heard the term all my life. Um, I've been accused of being a bandwagoner for my University of Colorado Buffaloes. But I had my first bandwagon moment, I believe, that we'll get into a little bit more. So this episode is called Bandwagon.
I was like, you gonna say hi to me
Hello, how are you doing?
She
first?
was
She said
coming in
hi.
hot.
Yes, I always do. How are you doing? Lovely wall, green wall.
Thank
I might
you.
have to bandwagon that, but it would be descending from my ceiling, so that probably wouldn't work. Hello, Miss USA. How are you doing? Mrs. USA, how are you doing?
Not the wave. Not the wave.
The way.
I know. I know. So, okay, y'all, let's get it. What is bandwagon? And why do we, the collective we society, tend to jump on a bandwagon? And for those who are looking for a definition, I shall read you from the Googles. Actually, it's
Not the
from Oxford,
Websters. It's a
not the
new day.
Webster's. Well, it's Oxford, okay.
All right, go
It's,
on, go
it's
on.
British. Um, So, bandwagon, it's a noun. It's used in reference of an activity, cause, etc., that is currently fashionable or popular and attracting increasing support. The end. So, what is it and why do we tend as a society to jump on a bandwagon?
So since we're coming in hot, um, Miss Joe. Okay. Um,
We only got 30 minutes,
Miss
27.
Joe. Uh, because people don't like to think for themselves.
Ooh, you went hard in the
Ooh.
paint. People don't like to
So
think for
if
themselves,
people
okay?
don't like to think for themselves, it's easier. They don't want to think for themselves. They don't want to research. They don't want to get the facts. They don't want to get educated. So it's easier to just jump on the bandwagon because you go with the assumption that, okay, if the majority is saying this, it must be true. It must be accurate. So let me roll with it. And I don't want to be a contrarian.
That's an interesting perspective, Gigi. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
um, I don't even feel like I have an experience with being on the bandwagon for anything, but I have certainly been accused of being on the bandwagon, in
Mhm.
particular when it comes to my Lakers. And then I have
Our
to
Lakers.
tell our Lakers, that's true. And then I have to tell the story about how a Laker game was the first NBA game that my dad took me to. We sat courtside and Magic Johnson gave me a shoe. And I said at the age of, I think it was either 11 or 13, something like that, that I would always be a Laker fan. I have to
I
tell
never
the
knew that
story.
about you.
Yes,
I never knew the magic story.
that is
I
the reason.
because you're not a Laker fan. so and I
Kenny, I
want to,
never knew that. Thanks for sharing the story, Kenny. I never knew that.
yeah,
Thank you.
I do want to put, we'll come back a little bit more because I want to better understand. Never been on haven't been on a bandwagon. I'm going to test that because um I also think, particularly in today's society where the news of, I don't even know what it's called, X. So you can't, what is it called? The act of Xing. Is it Xing? Instead of tweeting. Anyway, in the
Oh
land
Lord.
of social media where information, I won't even, news information, I'm not even going to say accurate
Mhm.
news or accurate information. It's information gets put out instantaneously that and I think when we see it from on our Instagram, maybe it's on our X. I'm not on X. Maybe it's in doubt it's in LinkedIn. Maybe it's coming from different pieces that we're using now as sources. And then we quickly go to, did y'all know that this person did this person did this person? So I actually, in talking and thinking about that, I think there's twice, not thrice, but twice that I have
Mhm.
done that, where you're getting multiple points of light. And sometimes that light ain't as bright as it should be. And so when I think about the why we jump on, it's because I think if I'm getting it from my group chat texting, my kids are often my source of breaking news. If I'm getting from multiple group chats, if I'm getting it, if I'm seeing it on, yeah, if I'm seeing it on social media, like for example, like what's going on with Jordan Childs, I was like, I was jumping in and that's wrong, because my heart was like, I didn't want it to be right, and doing a little bit of digging, I still don't understand what the heck's going on, so that may not be the best example. But I think when you get enough momentum, that we sometimes take that as fact,
Mhm.
or good enough. If might not get in it doesn't raise in my top 50, but I'm gonna go with it. Fine. But we take that as fact and we move acting accordingly, and we decide we like that, we don't like that.
Is bandwagon always negative though?
Well, good segue. I have historically thought of bandwagoning as a negative connotation that you use to describe somebody who doesn't want to take the time to think for themselves. And until I put myself on a bandwagon, that is with Kamala. I'll
Mhm.
admit. I mean, I've shared a Southwest airline flight with her a few times. Hey, Sora, how you doing? Back when we were both living in the Republic of California. I know y'all have had interactions with her, but it wasn't until 20, no, I don't even think it was 24 hours after President Biden backed out that I was like,
Mhm.
let's go, I'm in for her. It took me a full 24 hours. And I for me, I just had to do a little bit. I did a little bit of digging, and I'm continuing to do
Mhm.
some digging. But I don't know. I've always thought of it as negative, but I'm claiming it, naming it. I'm part of the bandwagon.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
think
don't.
there are a couple of different ways, right? Because I don't think it's always negative at all. Because I think growing up, it was like, get on board, get on board. And it was, we're going a particular direction. Either you coming with or you're not. So it wasn't a negative, it was make a decision. So either come along on this ride or get off and go elsewhere. But if you're on this ride, join the bandwagon, let's go, we're on the way. So I think it depends, and it's not necessarily for something that is negative. But when I think about, going back to our good friend Kamala, and I keep thinking the Kamala with your mama shirt. Yes. But thinking back to our good friend Kamala, the bandwagon was real because there were so many who had so much negative to say
100%.
on both parties, right? About her experience, what she'd done in the past, what she'd done in the past. Now, how much had research had people done to say what was really real and what wasn't,
Right.
right? In terms of fact finding and what have you. But then you get to this point where are you backing someone more so because they're right and you're jumping on the bandwagon because you agree with them? Or you've been on the bandwagon because the alternative is more than what you can deal with?
So here's the reason why I say that I've never considered myself to be a bandwagoner is because I'm not there yet. I haven't decided who I'm voting for. I haven't decided that I'm not writing my own name in the ballot.
Use your words carefully.
All I'm saying is I don't immediately respond and move in a direction simply because that is the direction and flow of everyone else. I am always like trying to be very intentional about the things that I do, the positions I take, the vote I'm going to cast, the whatever it is. X, put whatever you want to put in the X box. Very intentional about that. And so I think that's why I never really consider myself to have experience with hopping on a bandwagon because I'm like, oh, okay, that's what everyone else is doing, and that's great. But I like to think for myself. I'm a fact finder. And maybe it's that, 1 year of law school, right? That is like dig in and see what the facts are and make an educated decision about what it is that you want to do and how you want to move forward. And if I do all of that and I still agree and I say, woohoo, let's go, I don't feel like that makes me on the bandwagon. I feel like I made a decision.
So who decides if you're on the bandwagon or not?
Me.
People will get labeled as such. That's why I want to distinguish between. I like your point, EJ, around in the workplace, it's get on board because this is where we're going. They don't say get on the bandwagon, because I do think socially, there is more of a negative spin because, when you said I was accused of being a Laker bandwagon, it wasn't, I was credited with being on the Laker bandwagon because anyone who supports the Lakers, that's a privilege. So I do think that there is, I think there's a distinction between bandwagon. For me, it tends to still have a negative connotation. I was slightly kidding when I said I part of the bandwagon, but there's another piece going back to the definition used in reference to an activity cause that is currently fashionable or popular. So to me, it's when it bubbles up to my awareness. That then usually, it's because it's trending or whatever it is, it bubbles up because enough people are talking about it. So it can give the perception that you are jumping in on the bandwagon. But I'll do a quick little, because I'm single empty nester, I'll do my, my deep dive obsession to, okay, let me look at this, let me look at that, okay, I'm good. And then, and so for me, I said I'm proudly part of it because I wasn't. I was not. I mean, we're not supposed to talk about politics, but here we are. I didn't vote for her. Well, she didn't. She wasn't in long enough to when she was running for president for the 2020 election. But I would not have voted for her had I been given the opportunity. And so for me, I still believe that's that negative connotation. And I also think from a, I think, the society that we live in where we aren't taking the time to do that extra second, third step because it's trending, we forward it as fact. I remember with Kate Middleton when she was, there was something that was there was some Instagram, something that people were saying it as funny, something that Kate Middleton was looking like wearing or something along those lines. Turns out this woman had cancer. And so people were jumping in on the latest meme trend. People were jumping in on the latest whatever trend, poking fun at this, that, the other, without knowing, taking that extra step, taking that beat. And so I do think there's some pitfalls when you are part of the bandwagon and not taking that extra step to do the due diligence and decide for yourself.
So I just want to stay on Kamala for a minute because I mean that's the biggest sort of bandwagon effect happening right now. All of the groups that automatically just showed up and I was cracking up. I was like, okay, I got on the call with 46,000 of my closest friends because I wanted to hear firsthand what was happening, right? But then there was the men for Kamala. There were the white men for Kamala. There are the white women for Kamala. There are the people of African descent for Kamala. There are the people of Asian. I mean, the forums there are whole WhatsApp communities now that are, have created this space. So when you think about it, that's when I think about, is bandwagon negative? Absolutely not. Because if I'm Kamala or her camp, this is the most positive, momentum building, whatever the reason, whatever ignited it, this bandwagon is for her good.
So but is it getting on board? I will admit I was a bandwagoner. I will admit I had a complete, I'm jumping on this train, and now I've converted more to on board. And I think there's probably a bit of both. There's probably a bit of both. There are people that will be spewing fact attributed to her that's incorrect, right? And but because it's popular, she's trending, she's doing all the things, they will join that Kamala bandwagon because of that and not do that extra step, even if it's for the good of her. they will join in without taking that extra step. I think we're adding, I think I need to write to Oxford and have them add a semicolon. that speaks to something around the connotation of negative, positive, and what that means, and as well as taking that extra step to decipher for yourself beyond the popularity, because popularity only lasts for so long.
But so, do you think of Bandwagon as go along to get along?
For things I don't care about as much, if it's in my top 50, probably not. For things that fall below that, like this doesn't, I have no dog in the fight. I'll go along to get along, but I try not to spread unchecked information.
Do you think that some people hop on bandwagons for their own personal validation? Has nothing to do with the cause itself, but because that is the direction that folks are headed in, they want to be part of something, right? They want to be able to say, you know, I was on the call that raised $1 million and I did this and I did that, and puff their chest up a little bit.
I think, well, school starting, and the example that I think of most is, well, first of all, thank goodness I've aged out of that that age where if you're not showing up with the latest basketball, LeBron, Jumpman, something, I don't even know what it is, you are so bandwagon fashion trend, you are not, if you're not following it, if you don't have the never full Louis Vuitton, if you don't have that, then what are you doing?
Well, I have they're two. The littles are two. And I'm getting, they're the cutest Jordans out for the girls that they could have matching. They're two. Why do 2-year-olds need matching Jordans?
The same way they need matching outfits in general. What, you're their mother. You don't get a vote. Wait, what is she talking about right now?
First of all, who is she talking to?
Who is she talking to?
I'm talking to not y'all, the rest of the world. I'm talking to the rest of the world.
Oh, because my babies will get some Jordans. My babies will wear some Jordans.
Yeah.
Why?
Because of the quality. Cute. That's why.
They're cute.
There are all kind of things that are quality that are cute.
Why and they'll have those too.
Jordan, right? But my point is, why does it have to be a Jordan?
Because
why does it have to be
the never have a Louis Vuitton
why does it have to be
they can have a Chanel sneaker. Yeah. There are so many options, and we'll make sure that they
have exactly. They will be exposed to all of it. What are you talking about right now?
And then when my babies are on the trend bandwagon, I hope that their aunties are going to be there to support the habit that they have created.
Well, we will be. And they'll enjoy all of the splendor of having wonderful aunties.
This is recorded. Carry on.
So let's pivot back to your point that you made earlier, EJ, around in the workplace, right? There is, when the leader says, this is where we're going, you either get on board, you either with us or against us type of are there other scenarios where that shows up in the workplace? Kennedy, please.
So here's the thing. I don't consider, when a leader says, here is the strategy, the vision, the direction that we're headed, get on board, I don't see that as bandwagon. I see that as, you got a decision to make. This is either the organization that you want to be part of or not, right? And if you want to be part of it, then you get on board. If you see something wrong with where they're headed, you speak up. Yep. Here's where I see workplace bandwagon, is when you have a particular leader that nobody likes, and they all of a sudden get promoted into a role where they have power, and now everyone wants to flock to them. That is where I see bandwagon in the workplace. And it is so frustrating to watch, because the stories that have been told about the person and about their leadership style and about who they are and how they operate. But now you're watching those same people who shared all of those stories jump on the bandwagon because that person now is in a position of authority greater than what they were before.
So is that bandwagon or is that and I'm asking because I literally just had this conversation with someone who I was mentoring the other day. And is that jumping on the bandwagon or is that called self-preservation?
I think it's bandwagon because you can have self-preservation without becoming someone's advocate.
Well, there, so I'd say advocate, but if you jump on the, oh yeah, I support such and such, and oh yeah, they're a great, right? Whereas before you're like,
Advocacy.
oh, they're a demon wearing Prada. But you know,
I
where's
I,
the line?
I think there's some people on the wagon
Hmm.
that are there for self-preservation. Like if I don't go along, I'm going to be an outlier,
Hmm.
and often outliers in groups of more than one. Um,
Become
often
outcasts.
it often just don't. It's not always the good thing to be
Hmm.
the outlier. For good, for bad, it's not always. The person, the one in the meeting that always has to say the thing, and you're just like, we all, and I also think about when in the workplace when you have the I remember a company that shall remain nameless. We're going to be a fast follower. That's a real company.
Hmm. Yes,
Y'all
it
are familiar with the company.
is.
And it's often the hygiene within the organization before making a decision. I'm not putting any right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not making a judgment with this. Is what is the competition doing? We don't necessarily want to be an outlier. And then there are some smaller subset of entities that are just, this is the value we bring. We are in our own lane. Let's go. Anyone else, get on our wagon or not. But
Well,
I find, particularly the healthcare setting that we're mostly in, that's not typically the norm.
well, and I think just building on that, when you're talking about, and industry setting, healthcare settings, what have you. Here's one when we talk about this, climate change, the race to net zero, right? Um, People, if there was not the bandwagon effect of this is where we need to go, this is where people are going, oh, you're going to be looked at as this if you're not, focused on getting to net zero and focused on the impact of climate. There are organizations that would not be touching this with a 10-foot pole, right? But because this is this is what's hot, this is what's trending, this is what's going, you know, they're jumping on board. They're
Yeah.
jumping on board.
But here's the problem with that. So now I'm going to put my OD hat on, right? Because I'm going to say that successful culture is not created by just hopping on the bandwagon. It has to be something that's executed. And the problem is exactly when we had all these companies back when George Floyd happened and DEI was a thing and everybody hopped on the bandwagon and
Mhm.
we're going to make a change and everything's going to be different, and they hired all these people and put them into these roles, and then they tied their hands behind their back with all
Absolutely.
of the initiatives that they should have been able to move forward. Right. So it's like, to me, you can't just hop on a bandwagon to create the change. You actually have to execute. And when you only do it because there's pressure and you're trying to keep up with everyone else, there's no real change that happens in that. And so it's frustrating to me. And I see it all the time, right? It happens all the time.
So what you gonna do, B? What you gonna do?
Y'all are like slick with the segues. Slick with the segues.
You know what? I know we talk about do your homework, right? But
School's coming. School's coming.
school is here. School is here, by the way.
Right. School is in session, let me tell
Yeah.
you.
Not on the East Coast. We don't go that early. It's too hot.
Mm. Well, we had an earthquake. They're still in school. Carry on.
Right. Them East Coast folks just soft. I don't know.
Mm,
Uh,
mm.
Okay.
I'm on the bandwagon. I'm on it. I'm on it.
Talk to me in February. Go ahead.
No, it is every person's responsibility to check your facts. Know what's happening before you make decisions and start to pass information along, before you start to take a position on something. Do your homework and actually know for yourself
Mhm.
whether or not you are making a decision consciously or just hopping on the bandwagon because that is the direction everyone else is moving in.
Those are facts.
Mhm.
EJ, get in the arena.
So I love that you gave me the sports one because this is my
It
expertise.
actually is not a sports one.
Oh, but
It's
I was
a
taking
personal
it
quote.
there because that's where I went.
Oh, I'm just impressed that that was your first inclination.
Are you proud of me? Look,
I don't even
might
know
be
what's
rubbing
happening.
off on me.
I don't even know what's happening.
Part of this is you. um, you got to be in the game. You got to get in the arena. You got to be in the game for yourself. I mean, we talked a little bit about the Olympics. We talked about, Jordan Childs and sort of the things that were happening with her. But if you think about, there are so many other stories to unpack in the Olympics, right? The men's basketball team for the first time were starting to become underdogs, right? They had to scrap a little bit. People started dating, doubting, throwing a little salt that way, and then all of a sudden, guess what? There was a magic moments that happened with some three-pointers, and all of a sudden everybody's back on the bandwagon, right? You got to do some stuff for yourself. You have to get in there, make a decision, and stand in your conviction that it really doesn't matter what the situations are that are happening around me, that are happening around you. Choose ye this day who you're going to serve. Get
There's
in
that.
there.
There's that. And since you brought up sports, yeah, the women's basketball bandwagon is
Hmm.
popping. I don't think there's any more room. The tires are like struggling. And with the Caitlin Clark, with it's funny with Angel Reese and the hate that she gets and the love that Caitlin gets and all the things. And there are just it gets really intense when it comes to sports. And I think that's a great example of a bandwagon. And I'll end the show with this, which is, man, I have to say, and you brought it up with respect to the men's basketball, and I never have I ever. So I
Hmm.
do have to correct myself. I said twice I've been on, but on a bandwagon, it is thrice. The way that Steph Curry was getting it done. I was excited to see Jason Tatum on the bench, but the way that I have never in my life rooted for Steph Curry to make a three. Never in my life for him to make a three, and that was very different for me. But once the medals were given, once the song was sung, I'm back. Lakers for life. Let's go.